Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Andrew Moran, Sarah Cowgill, Keelan Ferris, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. The leak of a February draft opinion overturning Roe v. Wade by Justice Samuel Alito hit the swamp in bombshell fashion. We're talking giant waves here, folks. So surf's up for both sides of the political divide, with each party trying to galvanize its base. Meanwhile, Chief Justice John Roberts has requested the court-martial ferret out the leaker. It's a lot to unpack, which is why Liberty Nation's legal eagle is on deck to sort out the whole mess. Scott Cosenza, give us your best intel.
Well, I don't know. Intel is going to be the right word for it. It's more about the facts. I wish they had some intel. You know, that marshal who's been charged with investigating this is not ideally suited to that person is more of an administrator, Lisa. And I suspect that the results of any investigation will yield zero results, and we may never know the identity of the leaker.
Wait a minute. I'm going to challenge you on that. I mean, this is a very small world, and don't you think there would be at least some sort of electronic footprint, Keelan, or anybody?
I would think so. I'm not the legal expert,
but I'm not sure anybody
but
really cares. I mean, it could very well be one of the other justices, trying to throw the monkey wrench.
There were actually a Twitter thread the day after that leak happened, and one of the Twitter users found a connection between one of the law clerks and one of the Supreme Court justices, and they narrowed in, their relationship with the political reporter. They narrowed in on their stances on their opinions when they were in law school. So they named a specific individual, which I will not do in this program. But yeah, so there is some connections being made by the public.
All right, Scott, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah, I saw that. It's important for me to add, Lisa. I saw that thread that Andrew's talking about, and I didn't see a lot of value there. That seemed to be speculation based on speculation. I would consider folks to not think that that's what happened. Really, the status of the investigation is we really have no idea. It could be a justice, or it could be a typesetter, or a janitor, or anybody in between right now.
Let me ask you: does anybody know here? Was this a hard copy, or was it an electronic copy that got to Politico? Does anyone know that? Well, I heard something about how they treat hard copies of opinions that go around, and apparently they stick it in the shredder one way, then they stick it in the shredder the other way, then they burn it, then they make a slurry out of it. I mean, they really destroy the darn thing, So I was just wondering, if it's a real copy, that might be tricky to get out, but if it's an electronic copy, then you got footprints, right?
The image that the PDF that Politico released that we published on LibertyNation.com the same night was a printout. Now, we don't know though if Politico printed that out from a digital file or the person who leaked it supplied it that way. There are printers that do use something called microdots, which allow forensic examinations of those if you have access to the printer and you printed another page, but there's no indication yet that this has that or that it could be used. And there's no crime, by the way, that has been committed if the identity of the leaker is of a certain class. And what I mean by that is there may be a crime if a typesetter did it. I'm not sure about that. But if a justice, for instance, leaked the opinion, which is possible, they have committed no crime. Now, they may be impeached, and I would hope they would be impeached if it was discovered they did so, Lisa. But it can't be investigated as a crime if there isn't a crime, right? So that's a complicating factor as well.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me just follow up with one question. And that is, if somebody stuck a hard copy of this inside their coat or their, hat or whatever, their handbag, and walked out, isn't that theft of governmental property?
No, I don't think so.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, I find that shocking. Sarah, you're our political experts. Did you see this coming? And, does this really surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me as much as the political climate that we're in these days. Everybody's jockeying for the best way to incense the other side. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was leaked by the more liberal justices on the court. It does surprise me that there's less of a kind of a thumbprint on it. There's got to be something. There's got to be a way to trace it. So I just don't know how that's going to happen. And Scott was absolutely on point. It's not even really a crime. So is this more like just, disinformation? Who knows what the purpose of this was? It doesn't seem to be any kind of good purpose for the conservative judges to have leaked this, because all it's doing is creating a big stir.
There is a case for that, by the way.
Yeah, I
I'm not
wanted you
saying
to expand on that. I want you to expand on that.
It's not necessarily persuasive, ultimately, I think, to me, but there is a case that, for instance, one of the justices who make up the majority vote to overturn Roe, or at least allow the current law to stay in place. One of the kind of footnotes to this story is that even though Justice Alito's draft writes from the position of the majority, that's just the majority of the holding in the case, meaning that the restriction on that abortion procedure may be implemented. We don't know that any other justice, even one other justice, has agreed with his reasoning, right? So there could be a result from the court that says this abortion law is allowed to stand, but that Justice Alito is the only one who agrees with the entirety of his opinion. We could have, each justice could write their own opinion. So that's sort of, one of the footnotes to the case.
Haven't the justices been kind of cagey about answering questions on this? Like, hey, this is the big rumor. Would you vote, to repeal this? Or, isn't that, I don't know. It just seems like everybody's pretty cagey about this whole deal.
I think there's been a lot of discussion from the left that these justices lied during their confirmation hearings about Roe. But a review of their testimony, which I have completed before this recording, suggests that absolutely there's no basis in fact for that. All they did was they basically recognized that Roe was a precedent and an important one. As did Ketanji Brown Jackson, by the way, who was asked by Senator Feinstein before she took leave of her faculties whether or not Roe is super precedent. And KBJ herself says, no, it's not super precedent. It's an important precedent, but that there is no super precedent, that all rulings from the court deserve sort of respect of precedent. And Justice Alito spends, I think, dozens of pages of his 60 some odd page from Roe and why it was bad precedent. So even he, in the overruling of Roe, gives it a massive amount of respect to justify that kind of endeavor, right? To explain the reasons why they're now overruling it.
Okay, we're sort of running out of time. I want to go to Keelan quickly. You're our tech expert. Does it surprise you that this may have been taken out in written form, and do you think that there would be some digital footprint?
Lisa, I'm gonna maybe anger you by interrupting and saying there's just one other aspect about this form that we want to consider. That Josh Gerstein, Politico's Supreme Court reporter, was on the byline, and also one other reporter was on the byline, a national security reporter, which suggests there may be hacking or other issues involved in the case beyond the sort of normal political leakage.
All right, fair enough. That's what I'm trying to get to with Keelan. Do you think that there would be some digital footprints left behind, especially, like you said, if there's some security issues?
I would say so, but I think it's going to take a long time to figure that out. We might have a decision before that. So, maybe 2 to 3 years from now, we figure out that someone did hack into somebody's system. And it depends on whether or not there is a digital footprint or there's not, or there's one deeply embedded in a line of code that we aren't aware of yet. So it could take 2 years. We have no idea. But what I'm mostly concerned about at this point is, sure, finding out who leaked it, but also if the justices roll back and say, actually, we're not going to overturn Roe v. Wade, I think that's going to be a problem in the fact that people will think that if we protest and public opinion can sway the justice system.
Well, that's a really good point. And Andrew, today we hear that they've got big police, they've erected fences around the Supreme Court building. Interesting.
Freedom fence.
Yeah, the freedom fence, right. The one that doesn't work at the border. Right. But anyway, so they've got fences up, and then somebody apparently was busy publishing the home addresses of the justices, and there's a big police presence or some kind of security presence with the families of the justices and the justices themselves. What do you make of all this, Andrew?
Well, I think the left's reaction to this is completely unjustified. I mean, they have to realize that abortion, unfortunately, is never going to be fully outlawed in the United States. There's always going to be demand for it. There's always going to be blue states that are going to allow it to happen, because all this does is remove this Roe v. Wade from understanding, is that it just gives the power back to the states. So all these people are freaking out. The best way to avoid abortion, best way to avoid getting pregnant, just go to the local Walmart, spend $10 on a box of condoms, buy some contraceptives. You're done. You're finished. You don't need to get an abortion. It's done. It's finished. You will not get pregnant that way. Or better yet, don't have sex.
Well,
Wow.
on that note, we're way over time. We do expect a final decision by the High Court to be made public in the next 2 months or so. We'll keep you posted. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel, where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Join us on the Member Zone, just $17.76 for the year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio, and our executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.